They say revenge is a dish best served cold. Well, mine took 30 years to freeze. My name is Master Sergeant Claudia Jefferson, and the man who called me an easy mark is rotting in federal prison right now because I made sure of it. This is the story of how a slick-talking lawyer thought he could rob a black woman veteran and disappear into the American dream. He thought wrong. Dead wrong. If you've ever been underestimated, stolen from, or told to just move on and forget about it, then this story is for you. Hit that subscribe button right now because what I'm about to tell you will prove that justice doesn't have an expiration date. And if you love seeing arrogant criminals get exactly what they deserve, smash that like button. Trust me, you're going to want to see how these ends. Phoenix, Arizona, summer of 1983. The heat was so thick you could choke on it, but that wasn't what was suffocating me. It was the bureaucracy, the red tape, the endless VA appointments that led nowhere. I was 55 years old. 3 tours in Vietnam. 2 commendations. A Purple Heart I earned when shrapnel tore through my left shoulder during the Tet Offensive. I still had fragments in there that set off metal detectors. Permanent reminders of what I gave for a country that kept losing my paperwork. But I wasn't alone in that struggle. Every black veteran I knew was fighting the same battle. White boys came home to ticker tape parades and fast-track benefits. We came home to suspicious looks and claims that somehow got buried under mountains of bureaucratic nonsense. That's when I heard about John Donald Cody. "Girl, you need to see this lawyer in Scottsdale," my friend Bernice told me at the VFW hall. Bernice Washington had served as a nurse in Da Nang, saved more lives than she could count. The VA was dragging their feet on her disability claim, too. "A lawyer," I said. "Bernie, I can't afford no fancy lawyer." "That's the thing," she said, leaning in close. "He specializes in veterans, especially us, black veterans. He knows the system is rigged against us, and he's fighting back." I should have known right then. When something sounds too good to be true, it usually is. But I was desperate, tired, and yeah, maybe I wanted to believe that somebody out there actually gave a damn about what we'd been through. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in John Donald Cody's office. The place screamed money, leather chairs, mahogany desk, diplomas covering the walls like wallpaper. He had certificates from universities I'd actually heard of, bar admissions from 3 different states. The man looked legitimate. "Master Sergeant Jefferson," he said, standing up and extending his hand. He was white, maybe 45, with perfect teeth and a suit that probably cost more than my car. "Thank you for your service." I shook his hand. Firm grip, eye contact, all the things they teach you about trust. "Please sit down," he continued. "I've reviewed the preliminary information you sent over, and frankly, I'm appalled at how the VA has treated you." "That makes 2 of us," I said. He opened a folder on his desk. My folder. He'd actually done homework. 3 tours in Vietnam. Field communications specialist. Injured in combat. Honorable discharge. And they're denying your disability claim. He shook his head like he couldn't believe it. This is exactly the kind of injustice I built my practice to fight. "Mr. Cody." "John, please." "John," I said, "I need to be straight with you. I don't have a lot of money. I've been working 2 jobs just to keep my head above water while I fight this claim." He held up his hand. "Claudia, may I call you Claudia?" I nodded. "Claudia, I don't do this for the money. I do this because it's right, because veterans like you defended this country, and the least I can do is defend you against a system that's failing you." Smooth. Real smooth. "Now, I won't lie to you," he continued. "These cases are complex. The VA has armies of lawyers whose only job is to deny claims and protect their budget. To fight them effectively, I need to bring in specialists, medical experts. document analysts, people who can cut through the bureaucratic nonsense. How much are we talking? I asked. He pulled out a contract. My retainer for VA disability cases is $7,500. I know that sounds like a lot. It is a lot, I interrupted. But consider this, he said, sliding a calculator across the desk. If we win your case, and based on your service record and injuries, we absolutely will win, you're looking at retroactive benefits going back to when you first filed. That's easily $40,000 to $50,000, plus monthly disability payments for the rest of your life. $7,500 is less than 20% of your first check alone. The math made sense. Damn him, the math made sense. I've helped dozens of veterans just like you, he said, especially Black veterans who the system has tried to sweep under the rug. Bernice Washington is one of my clients. She should be getting her settlement any day now. That sealed it. Bernie wouldn't steer me wrong. Where do I sign? I asked. He smiled. I knew you were a smart woman the moment you walked in. I wrote him a check for $7,500. It was every penny I'd saved over the past 3 years. Money I'd scraped together from working the graveyard shift at the VA hospital and weekend shifts at a grocery store. But it was going to be worth it. Finally, someone was going to fight for me. Or so I thought. John Donald Cody didn't waste any time making me feel like I'd made the right decision. The next morning, I got a call from his office. Mrs. Jefferson, this is Patricia calling from Mr. Cody's office. He wanted me to let you know that he's already filed the initial paperwork with the VA, and he's scheduled meetings with 2 medical specialists this week to review your case. That fast? I said. Mr. Cody doesn't believe in wasting time. Patricia said, your case is a priority. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Over the next few weeks, John kept me updated. Phone calls every few days. Letters on official letterhead. He made me feel important, seen, like I mattered. Claudia, I've got good news, he said during one call. I've identified 3 major errors in how the VA processed your initial claim. These alone should be grounds for immediate reconsideration. That's wonderful, I said. There's more, he continued. I've been in contact with a former VA administrator who's willing to testify about systemic discrimination against Black veterans during the 70s and 80s. This could be huge, not just for your case, but for a class action lawsuit I'm building. A class action lawsuit against the VA for discriminating against Black veterans. This man wasn't just fighting for me. He was fighting for all of us. John, I don't know how to thank you, I said. Just trust the process, he replied. Justice takes time, but it's coming. I believed him. God help me. I believed every word. 3 months in, I started telling other veterans about John Donald Cody, my cousin Raymond, who'd served in Korea, my neighbor's son, Terrence, who'd done 2 tours in Vietnam, my friend from church, Loretta, whose husband had died from Agent Orange exposure, and she was fighting for survivor benefits. This lawyer is the real deal, I told them. He actually cares. One by one, they went to see him. One by one, they wrote him checks. Raymond, $8,000. Terrence, $6,500. Loretta, $9,000 for her husband's case. We were all in it together, all believing that finally someone was going to make things right. For months in, I called John's office to check on my case status. I'm sorry, Mrs. Jefferson, Patricia said, Mr. Cody is in depositions all week, but he asked me to tell you that everything is progressing smoothly. 5 months in, I called again. Mr. Cody is in Washington, D.C. meeting with VA officials. Patricia said, he'll call you when he returns. He didn't call. 6 months in, I drove to his office unannounced. I needed to see documents, progress reports, something tangible. The parking lot was emptier than I remembered. I walked into the building, took the elevator to the third floor. Suite 312. The door was locked. I knocked. Nothing. I knocked harder. Hello? Patricia? John. A man in a janitor's uniform came down the hall. You looking for the lawyer? He asked. Yes. John Donald Cody. He shook his head. They cleared out about 2 weeks ago. Middle of the night. Left all kinds of furniture and stuff behind. My stomach dropped. What do you mean cleared out? I mean gone. The building manager is trying to figure out what to do with all the stuff they left. You got business with them. I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Lady, you okay? The janitor asked. I wasn't okay. I was $7,500 poorer and no closer to my benefits than I'd been 6 months ago. I drove straight to Bernie's house. Bernie, I pounded on her door. Bernie, open up. She opened the door, and I knew immediately the look on her face, the shame, the anger. He got you too, I said. She nodded, started crying. Claudia, I'm so sorry. I'm the one who told you about him. I thought he was legitimate. I really did. How much did he take from you? 8,000, she whispered. Every penny of my mother's life insurance money. We sat on her porch and cried together. 2 black women veterans who'd survived war, racism, and poverty, brought down by a smooth-talking con man in an expensive suit. But then something shifted inside me. I stopped crying, wiped my face, looked at Bernie. We're not done, I said. Claudia, the man is gone. He's probably in another state by now, running the same con on other people. Then we find him, I said. We find him, and we make sure he pays for what he did. Bernie looked at me like I was crazy. How are we supposed to find him? We're not police. We're not private investigators. No, I said, we're better. We're military-trained, pissed-off black women who have nothing left to lose. And that makes us the most dangerous thing he's ever going to encounter. That night, I started my investigation. I didn't know it then, but it would take me 30 years. 30 years of hunting. 30 years of gathering evidence. 30 years of making sure that John Donald Cody would pay for calling us easy marks. Most people would have gone to the police. I did. That was my first mistake. The detective at the Phoenix Police Department looked bored before I even finished my story. Ma'am, how much did you say you gave this lawyer? He asked. $7,500. He wrote it down without looking up. And you have a contract? Yes, I have the contract he gave me. Good. That's a civil matter. You'll need to sue him. But he's gone, I said. He disappeared. Cleaned out his office in the middle of the night. The detective finally looked up. If he left the state, that complicates things. Did he cross state lines with the intent to defraud? I don't know. How would I know that? He sighed. Look, Mrs. Jefferson, I understand you're upset, but this sounds like a contract dispute. Unless we can prove criminal intent, wire fraud, or that he's part of a larger criminal enterprise, there's not much we can do. There are other victims. I said, lots of them. All veterans. Mostly black veterans. Do you have their names and contact information? Some of them. Then gather all that information, file a report, and we'll see what we can do. But I'm being honest with you. These cases are hard to prosecute, and even harder when the suspect has left the jurisdiction. I left that police station knowing I was on my own. Bernie and I started making calls. Every veteran, we knew who'd gone to see John Donald Cody. We needed to know how deep this went. Raymond, my cousin, had given him $8,000. Terrence, my neighbor's son, had given him $6,500. Loretta, from church, had given him $9,000. We found 12 victims just in our immediate circle. All black, all veterans, all robbed. Total damage, over $90,000. We need to find more victims, I told Bernie. The more people he hurt, the more attention we'll get from law enforcement. We put notices in the VFW newsletter. We talked to people at the VA hospital. We called every Black veterans organization in Arizona. The list grew. 20 victims. 30. 50. By the time we finished our preliminary investigation, we'd identified 73 veterans in Arizona alone who'd been scammed by John Donald Cody. The total was over $600,000. But Arizona wasn't the only place he'd operated. I started calling veterans organizations in other states: California, Nevada, New Mexico, Colorado. Same story, different cities, same con. He came through Denver about 2 years ago. A veterans advocate in Colorado told me. Set up shop for 6 months. Took money from at least 40 veterans we know of. Then vanished. Did anyone report him? I asked. Oh, yeah. Police took reports. But nothing ever came of it. He was gone before they could build a case. This wasn't just a con. It was a system, a mobile operation. He'd set up in a city, target Black veterans specifically, take their money, and disappear before anyone could stop him. I started building files, one for each city he'd operated in, one for each victim I could identify. My dining room table became my command center. Maps, timelines, victim statements, copies of contracts, canceled checks. My husband, James, was patient at first. Claudia, baby, you need to let this go, he said one night. It's eating you up inside. I can't let it go, James. He stole from us, from all of us. And you reported it. You did everything you could. Sometimes you just have to accept that bad people get away with bad things. No, I said, I didn't survive 3 tours in Vietnam just to let some civilian crook steal my money and walk away clean. I won't accept it. James looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay, then what do you need from me? Help me find him. We became a team. James was good with numbers and patterns. He started analyzing the timelines of when Cody operated in different cities, looking for patterns, trying to predict where he might go next. He moves every 6 to 8 months, James said, always to cities with large veteran populations, always sets up a legitimate-looking office, always targets the same demographic. Black veterans, I said, specifically Black veterans who are fighting VA claims, people who are already frustrated with the system, people who are desperate enough to trust someone promising help. It was calculated, predatory, evil. I contacted the FBI, filled out reports, sent them everything I'd gathered. Nothing happened. I contacted veteran advocacy groups, sent them my files. Some wrote back expressing sympathy. None of them could actually do anything. I contacted local news stations. I have a story about a con man targeting Black veterans. I told them. One reporter called me back, interviewed me, interviewed 2 other victims. The story aired on a Friday night. 3 minutes of local news. It disappeared into the void. John Donald Cody kept operating. Years passed. My investigation became my obsession. 1985, 1986, 1987. I tracked him to California, then Oregon, then Washington State. Always one step behind. Always just missing him. Claudia, you have to stop, James said in 1988. This is destroying you. You're not sleeping. You're not eating. You've spent thousands of dollars chasing this man across the country. I'm close, I said. I can feel it. You've been close for 5 years. He was right. I had been. And I was no closer to catching John Donald Cody than I'd been the day I discovered his office empty. But I couldn't stop. Wouldn't stop. Because every time I thought about quitting, I remembered what the detective said. What James said. What everyone said. Let it go. Move on. Accept it. And I thought, no, that's what he's counting on. He's counting on us being too tired, too poor, too busy just surviving to come after him. He was counting on us being easy marks. 1992, 8 years after John Donald Cody disappeared. I was 64 years old, retired from the VA hospital, finally got my disability benefits approved. No thanks to any lawyer, just persistence and a new VA administrator who actually looked at my file. But the money didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a reminder. James had passed away 2 years earlier. Heart attack. The doctor said it was genetic. I knew better. Stress. Years of watching me chase a ghost had taken its toll on both of us. I stood at his grave and made him a promise. I'm going to finish this, I said, not just for me, for all of us. The investigation had gone cold. Cody's trail had disappeared completely. No new reports of his scams. No new victims coming forward. It was like he'd vanished into thin air. But I'd learned something in 8 years of hunting him. Men like John Donald Cody don't just stop. They can't. The con is who they are. He was out there somewhere under a different name, running a different scam. I just had to find him. I started over, went back through every file, every victim statement, every piece of information I'd gathered. I was looking for patterns, behaviors, anything that might tell me who he really was. That's when I found something I'd missed. In 1984, right after he disappeared, there was a small news article from Flagstaff, Arizona. A lawyer had been disbarred for misappropriating client funds. The lawyer's name was John Michael Stevens. The photo was grainy, but something about the eyes looked familiar. I drove to Flagstaff, went to the courthouse, pulled the disbarment records. John Michael Stevens had been practicing law since 1978. Before that, his record was murky. No law school listed. No undergraduate degree verified. I pulled his bar admission documents. They listed a law degree from a university in California. I called the university. We have no record of a John Michael Stevens graduating from our law school. The registrar told me, "Are you sure?" This would have been in the mid-70s. I'm looking at our complete records. No John Michael Stevens. Ever. Fraudulent credentials. He'd been running cons before he was John Donald Cody. I dug deeper. Found another name. Jonathan David Carlson. Disbarred in Nevada in 1981 for the same thing. Misappropriating client funds. Same pattern. Fake credentials. Targeted vulnerable clients. Disappeared before facing consequences. How many names did this man have? I started searching court records across the western United States, looking for lawyers who'd been disbarred for fraud, looking for patterns that matched. It took me 3 years, but I found 6 different identities, 6 different names. Same con, same man. John Donald Cody was just his most recent alias. But what was his real name? I hired a private investigator. Cost me $3,000 I couldn't really afford. But I needed help. Professional help. His name was Marcus. No, wait, his name was Deshaun Miller. Retired police detective. Black man who understood why this mattered. "Mrs. Jefferson, I've seen cases like this," Deshaun said. "Con men who operate under multiple identities. They're hard to catch because every time law enforcement gets close, they just become someone else. Can you find his real name?" I asked. "I can try, but it's going to take time and money. These guys are good at covering their tracks. I don't care how long it takes. Find him." Deshaun worked the case for 6 months. He found 3 more aliases, traced them back further, and finally, in 1995, he called me. "I found him," Deshaun said. His real name is Robert William Thompson, born in 1942, grew up in Ohio, dropped out of college, no law degree, no legitimate credentials, been running cons since the late 60s. Robert William Thompson. I repeated. The name felt right. Final. There's more, Deshawn said. He's not just conning veterans anymore. He's upgraded. He's running a massive charity fraud in Florida. Fake veteran charity, bringing in millions. Millions? Yeah, he's calling it the United Veterans Relief Fund. Claims to help homeless veterans. Sends out direct mail campaigns. Telemarketing. The whole operation. And it's completely fake. The money goes straight into his pocket. How is he getting away with this? Because he's learned. He's got shell companies, offshore accounts, layers of protection. This isn't some small-time lawyer scam anymore. This is organized crime. I felt sick. While I'd been searching for him, he'd been getting bigger, bolder, hurting more people. Where is he now? I asked. Tampa, running the charity from an office downtown. Goes by the name John Donald Cody again. I guess he figures enough time has passed that no one will connect him to the Arizona scams. We need to report this. I already did, Deshawn said. Called the FBI, Florida Attorney General, IRS, everyone I could think of. And they said they'd look into it. Mrs. Jefferson, I'm going to be straight with you. These agencies get thousands of fraud reports every year. Unless there's imminent danger or massive public pressure, these cases move slow. How slow? Years, maybe decades. I sat down, felt every one of my 67 years. So what do? I asked. You keep gathering evidence, keep documenting, keep building the case, and eventually they'll have so much evidence they can't ignore it. Eventually isn't good enough. It's all we've got, Deshawn said. But he was wrong. It wasn't all we had. We had something John Donald Cody didn't expect. We had patience. We had documentation. And we had the fact that I wasn't going to die before seeing him in handcuffs. I moved to Tampa in 1996. Bernie thought I was crazy. Claudia, you're 68 years old. You can't just pick up and move across the country to chase a con man. Watch me, I said. I rented a small apartment 3 miles from John Donald Cody's office. I needed to be close, needed to watch him, document everything. My life became surveillance. Every morning, I'd drive to his office, park across the street, watch who came and went, take photos, write down license plates. The United Veterans Relief Fund had a legitimate-looking operation. Nice office, professional signage, staff coming and going. But I knew the truth. I started volunteering at the local VFW, joined veterans groups, attended meetings, not just to blend in, but to warn people. Have any of you heard of the United Veterans Relief Fund? I'd ask. Some had. Yeah, they send us mail asking for donations all the time. Don't give them money. I'd say it's a scam. How do you know? Because the man running it stole from me and dozens of other veterans back in Arizona. He's a con artist using multiple names. I became known as the crazy old lady with a conspiracy theory. But some people listened. Some people started asking questions. I contacted local news stations. I have information about a fake veterans charity. One reporter showed interest. His name was David Mitchell. Young, eager, black. Mrs. Jefferson, these are serious allegations. He said, do you have proof? I opened my file boxes. 12 years of documentation, victim statements, court records, aliases, timeline. His eyes got wider as he read. This is incredible, he said. Why hasn't anyone reported this before? They have. Nobody listened. I'm listening now. David spent 3 months investigating. He contacted victims from Arizona, pulled court records, interviewed charity watchdog organizations. His story aired in May of 1997. Fake charity scams veterans out of millions. It was a 15-minute investigative piece, detailed, damning, complete with my interview and documents. The story went regional, then national. Within a week, the FBI opened an investigation. Within a month, the IRS started auditing the United Veterans Relief Fund. I thought we had him, but John Donald Cody was smarter than I gave him credit for. He shut down the charity, disappeared again. "Mrs. Jefferson, we're sorry," the FBI agent said. By the time we got a warrant, he'd already cleared out. Bank accounts closed. Office abandoned. "He's gone." "Then find him," I said. "We're trying. But these cases are complex. He's using sophisticated methods to hide his money and identity." "I found him," I said. "I'm 69 years old with no law enforcement training, and I found him." "You're the FBI." The agent looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, we appreciate your help, but this is now an active federal investigation. We need you to step back and let us do our job." "Step back." "Yes, ma'am, for your own safety and for the integrity of the investigation." I left that FBI office furious. They wanted me to step back. After 13 years, after finding him when they couldn't, I didn't step back. I kept searching, kept documenting, kept warning people. 2000 came. 2005. 2010. John Donald Cody stayed hidden, but I knew he couldn't help himself. He'd resurface. They always do. In 2012, I got a call from Deshawn. "Mrs. Jefferson, I found something." "What?" "There's a new charity scam. Different name, different city, but same MO, fake veteran charity, sophisticated direct mail campaign, based in Ohio. It's him." "I think so, but the charity is registered under a corporation with multiple layers. I can't trace it back to a real person yet." "Keep digging." He did, and in 2013, he confirmed it. John Donald Cody, now going by the name Bobby Thompson, running the U.S. Navy Veterans Association, taking in millions. But this time, people were paying attention. The Ohio Attorney General opened an investigation. The FBI joined. The IRS. Multiple agencies were circling. And then, in 2014, they found him. Not in Ohio, not in Florida, in Portland, Oregon, living under another alias, hiding in plain sight. They arrested him on a Tuesday morning. I was 86 years old when I got the call from the FBI. "Mrs. Jefferson, we wanted you to know. We arrested John Donald Cody this morning." I sat down, started crying. "Mrs. Jefferson, are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said. "I'm just fine." 30 years. It had taken 30 years. But I'd done it. We'd done it. The trial began in 2015. Cuyahoga County, Ohio. John Donald Cody. They were calling him Bobby Thompson in court, but I'd never call him anything but Cody. Was charged with 23 counts. Fraud, theft, money laundering, corrupt activity. The prosecution estimated he'd stolen over $100 million from donors who thought they were helping homeless veterans. $100 million. And my $7,500 was just the beginning. I flew to Cleveland for the trial. I was 87 years old. My knees hurt. My back hurt. But I wasn't going to miss this. Bernie couldn't make it. She passed away in 2009. Never got to see him caught. But I was there for both of us. The courtroom was packed. Victims, journalists, federal agents. This had become a major case, one of the largest charity frauds in U.S. history. And when John Donald Cody walked into that courtroom in handcuffs, I looked him straight in the eye. He looked old. 73. Gray hair. Wrinkled. Nothing like the smooth-talking lawyer I'd met in 1983. But those eyes were the same. Cold. Calculating. Empty. He glanced around the courtroom. His eyes passed over me without recognition. I'd spent 30 years hunting him. He didn't even remember me. That's when I understood something. To him, I was nobody. Just another mark. Another transaction. One of hundreds of people he'd scammed and forgotten. But he was about to remember me. The prosecution called its witnesses. FBI agents testified about the scope of the fraud. IRS agents detailed the money trail. Charity watchdog organizations explained how the scam worked. And then they called victim witnesses. I was the first. Mrs. Claudia Jefferson, can you please tell the court about your interaction with the defendant? I stood up, walked to the witness stand, took the oath. I looked directly at John Donald Cody. In 1983, I met the man you're calling Bobby Thompson. He was calling himself John Donald Cody then. He had an office in Scottsdale, Arizona. He claimed to specialize in helping veterans, especially black veterans, get their VA benefits. Cody's lawyer started to object, but the judge waved him off. I was a veteran. 3 tours in Vietnam. Purple Heart. The VA was denying my disability claim. I was desperate. So when this man told me he could help, I believed him. I gave him $7,500. Every penny I'd saved. I could feel the jury's attention. Total silence in the courtroom. 6 months later, his office was empty. He'd disappeared with my money. And not just my money. Money from dozens of other veterans. All of us black. All of us struggling. All of us easy marks. Objection. Cody's lawyer stood up. The witness is making assumptions about my client's motivations. Sustained. The judge said, Mrs. Jefferson, please stick to the facts. The facts are simple. I said, he stole from veterans. He's been stealing from veterans for over 40 years, using different names, different schemes, but always the same victims, always veterans, always people who'd served their country and deserved better. I looked at Cody again. He was staring at his legal pad, wouldn't meet my eyes. Do you have any regrets, Mrs. Jefferson? The prosecutor asked. Only one, I said. I regret that it took 30 years to get him here. 30 years of him hurting more people, more veterans, more families, because nobody would listen to us, because we were just easy marks. Thank you, Mrs. Jefferson. No further questions. Cody's lawyer stood up for cross-examination. Mrs. Jefferson, you said you gave my client $7,500 in 1983. That's 32 years ago. How can you be certain that the man sitting here today is the same man? Because I never forgot his face, I said. I've been looking at photos of him for 30 years. Different names, different haircuts, but same eyes, same man. But you can't be absolutely certain. I'm certain, I interrupted. I'm more certain of this than anything in my life. The lawyer looked frustrated. No further questions. Over the next 3 weeks, the prosecution built an overwhelming case. They traced bank accounts, showed how money from the fake charity was funneled through shell corporations and ended up in Cody's personal accounts. They brought in forensic accountants who'd analyzed years of financial records. They brought in more victims. People who donated to the U.S. Navy Veterans Association thinking they were helping homeless veterans. And they brought in investigators who tracked Cody's multiple identities across decades. The defense tried to argue that Bobby Thompson and John Donald Cody were different people, that the prosecution hadn't proven identity. But fingerprints don't lie. And neither did the mountain of evidence connecting every alias to the same man. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all 23 counts. The judge set sentencing for 60 days later. When they led John Donald Cody out of the courtroom in handcuffs, I stood up. He looked at me, finally really looked at me, and I smiled, because after 30 years, justice was finally here. Sentencing day, April 2015. The courtroom was packed again. Victims from across the country had flown in to give impact statements. But I was first. The judge asked if I wanted to address the defendant before sentencing. I stood up. My body ached. 87 years of living. But my mind was sharp. My words were ready. Your Honor, my name is Claudia Jefferson, Master Sergeant, United States Army, retired, 3 tours in Vietnam, Purple Heart recipient. I turned to face John Donald Cody. In 1983, I walked into your office looking for help. I'd served my country. I'd been injured in combat, and the VA system was failing me. You saw that failure. You saw that desperation, and you exploited it. Cody stared straight ahead. No emotion. You took $7,500 from me. Money I'd saved working 2 jobs. Money I needed to survive. You looked me in the eye, shook my hand, and promised you'd help me. And then you disappeared. I took a breath, kept my voice steady. But that wasn't enough for you. You moved to the next city, used a different name, found more victims, more veterans. You spent 40 years stealing from the people who'd given everything for this country. And you did it with a smile, with fake concern, with manufactured compassion. A few people in the courtroom were crying. I wasn't. Not anymore. I'd cried all my tears. You called us easy marks. I found your notes, your diary. You actually wrote those words. Easy marks. That's what you thought of us. People who'd served in war, who'd been injured, who'd sacrificed. We were easy marks to you. I stepped closer to the defense table. But here's what you didn't understand. We weren't easy. We were soldiers. We were trained to complete missions. And my mission became finding you, exposing you, making sure you faced justice. I looked at the judge. Your Honor, this man has shown no remorse, no accountability, no recognition of the harm he's caused. He's stolen from thousands of people, destroyed lives, destroyed trust, made vulnerable people even more vulnerable. I looked back at Cody. You thought I'd forget. You thought we'd all just move on, accept that bad people sometimes win. But we didn't forget. I didn't forget. And now you're going to spend the rest of your life paying for what you did. I sat down. The courtroom was silent. The judge called other victims. One by one, they told their stories. A widow whose husband died from Agent Orange exposure. She donated $15,000 to Cody's fake charity, thinking it would help other veterans like her husband. A Vietnam veteran who'd been homeless. He donated his disability check every month for 2 years, over $20,000, to a charity that didn't help anyone. A Gold Star mother whose son died in Iraq. She donated in his name. $30,000 over 5 years. Story after story. Pain after pain. When everyone had spoken, the judge addressed Cody. Mr. Thompson or Mr. Cody, or whatever your real name is, you have perpetrated one of the most egregious frauds this court has ever seen. You targeted the most vulnerable members of our society, people who served their country with honor, people who trusted you because you claimed to care about veterans. The judge paused. Let the words settle. The prosecution has requested a sentence of 40 years. Given your age and the severity of your crimes, that would effectively be a life sentence. Cody's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, my client is 73 years old. He has health issues. A sentence of that length would be appropriate. The judge interrupted. This defendant showed no mercy to his victims. He showed no remorse during trial. He has, in fact, maintained his innocence despite overwhelming evidence. The judge looked directly at Cody. You are hereby sentenced to 40 years in federal prison. You are ordered to pay restitution of $115 million to your victims. And you are permanently barred from operating any charitable organization in the United States. The gavel came down. John Donald Cody was led out of the courtroom. 40 years. He'd be 113 years old when his sentence ended. If he lived that long. He wouldn't. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Mrs. Jefferson, can we get a statement? I stopped, looked at the cameras. Justice doesn't have an expiration date, I said. It took 30 years, but we got there. And to anyone else out there who's been wronged, who's been told to just let it go, who's been called an easy mark, don't give up. Keep fighting. Keep documenting. Keep pushing. Because eventually the truth comes out. Mrs. Jefferson, what are you going to do now? I smiled. I'm going home. My work here is done. But it wasn't. Not quite. Getting convicted was one thing. Getting the money back was another. The judge ordered $115 million in restitution. But finding that money? Nearly impossible. John Donald Cody had hidden his assets in shell corporations, offshore accounts, and fake trusts. Investigators were still trying to untangle the web. I joined a victims advocacy group. About 200 of us, all people who'd been scammed by Cody over the decades. We met every month, shared information, supported each other, put pressure on federal agencies to keep investigating. Mrs. Jefferson, realistically, how much of this money do you think we'll recover? A woman named Janice asked during one meeting. She donated $50,000 to the fake Navy charity. I don't know, I said, but I didn't spend 30 years hunting this man just to let him hide the money he stole. We keep pushing. The FBI Financial Crimes Unit was working the case, following money trails, seizing accounts they could find. But Cody had been smart. He'd moved money constantly, converted it to different currencies, bought assets under fake names. In 2016, investigators found $3 million in a bank account in the Cayman Islands. The account was under a corporate name, but forensic accountants traced it back to Cody. $3 million out of $115 million. Better than nothing. That money was divided among victims based on how much they'd lost. I got about $8,000, almost exactly what he'd stolen from me 33 years earlier. But it wasn't about the money. Not anymore. It was about the principle. Claudia, you got your money back. My daughter Renee said, maybe now you can finally let this go. It's not just about my money, I said. There are people who lost their life savings, people who gave in memory of loved ones. They deserve restitution too. Over the next 3 years, investigators found more hidden assets. Another $5 million, then $7 million. By 2019, they'd recovered about $30 million total. Still far from the full amount, but enough to give most victims at least partial restitution. I got another check, $14,000. Bernie's widower got $12,000. It wasn't everything, but it was something. The victims group started to disband. People moved on, got closure, but I kept attending the monthly meetings, even when only 5 or 6 of us showed up. Mrs. Jefferson, why do you keep coming? Janice asked me. You got more money back than most of us. You saw him convicted. What more is there? Education, I said. We need to make sure this doesn't happen again. I started speaking at veterans organizations, sharing my story, warning people about charity scams. If someone is asking for money and you're not sure they're legitimate, look them up, I tell audiences. Check with charity watchdog organizations. Ask for documentation. And if something feels off, trust that feeling. I spoke at VFW halls, American Legion posts, VA hospitals, hundreds of speeches, thousands of veterans warned. In 2020, a young veteran approached me after one of my talks. Mrs. Jefferson, thank you for sharing your story. Last month, someone contacted me claiming to help with my VA claim. Wanted $7,500 upfront. Your story made me suspicious, so I reported it. Turns out it was a scam. You did the right thing, I said. I didn't lose any money because you told your story, because you warned us. That made it worth it. Every speech, every meeting, every year of fighting. John Donald Cody might have stolen from thousands of people, but my story was preventing others from becoming victims. That was its own form of justice. John Donald Cody was serving his sentence at FCI Elkton in Ohio. Federal prison. Medium security. In 2017, I did something unexpected. I wrote him a letter, not to forgive him, not to seek closure, but to make sure he understood exactly what he'd done. Mr. Cody, I wrote, you probably don't remember me. I was just one of many people you stole from, one of your easy marks. But I remember you. I remember every detail of the day I met you, every promise you made, every lie you told. I detailed my 30-year search, how I tracked him across the country, how I documented everything, how I'd warned others. You thought you could disappear. I wrote, you thought people like me would just give up. You were wrong. And now you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison because you underestimated the determination of the people you hurt. I mailed the letter. Didn't expect a response. 3 weeks later, I got one. His handwriting was shaky. Old man handwriting. Mrs. Jefferson, he wrote, I don't remember you specifically. I've met thousands of people over the years, but I want you to know that I never intended to hurt anyone. My operations were legitimate business ventures that unfortunately didn't work out as planned. I read that letter 3 times. Each time I got angrier. No remorse, no accountability, just more lies. He was still running a con, even from prison. I wrote back, Mr. Cody, your operations weren't business ventures. They were frauds. Carefully planned, deliberately executed frauds targeting vulnerable people. You knew exactly what you were doing, and the fact that you're still lying about it proves you've learned nothing. I told him about the victims who'd committed suicide after he stole their money, about families destroyed, about trust shattered. You didn't just steal money, I wrote. You stole hope. You stole dignity. You stole faith in humanity, and you did it systematically for 40 years. I mailed that letter, got another response. This one was different, shorter, more defensive. You don't know me, he wrote. You don't know my circumstances or what drove my decisions. It's easy to judge from the outside. I wrote back immediately. You're right. I don't know what drove you, and I don't care. Because nothing justifies what you did. No circumstance, no pressure, no excuse. You chose to hurt people over and over again. That's who you are. We exchanged letters for 2 years, him making excuses, me holding him accountable. Other victims found out about the correspondence. Some thought I was crazy for engaging with him. Claudia, why are you writing to that man? Janice asked, he doesn't deserve your time. I'm not doing it for him. I said, I'm doing it to make sure he can never forget what he did. Every letter is a reminder. Every word is accountability he can't escape. In 2019, his letters stopped. I thought maybe he'd given up, decided not to respond anymore. Then I got a call from the Bureau of Prisons. Mrs. Jefferson, I'm calling to inform you that inmate John Donald Cody passed away yesterday. Heart attack. He was 77 years old. I sat down, didn't know how to feel. Mrs. Jefferson, are you there? I'm here, I said. Thank you for letting me know. I hung up, stared at the wall. John Donald Cody was dead, died in prison, died knowing what he'd done, died without ever admitting the truth. But he died in prison. That was something. I called the victims group. Word spread quickly. Some people were relieved. Some were angry he died before serving his full sentence. Some felt nothing. I felt tired. 36 years of carrying this weight. 36 years of fighting. It was over. Really over. After John Donald Cody died, I thought I'd feel different. Lighter. Free. Instead, I felt purposeless. For 36 years, my life had been about this case. About justice. About making sure he paid for what he'd done. Now what? Mom, you can rest now, my daughter Renee said. You did what you set out to do. He was convicted. He died in prison. It's done. I know, I said, but it doesn't feel done. What it felt like was incomplete, because John Donald Cody was gone, but the problem wasn't. There were other con men out there, other predators targeting veterans, other John Donald Codys waiting to happen. I started researching how many other charity scams were targeting veterans. The numbers were staggering. The FTC estimated that Americans lose billions of dollars to charity fraud every year, and veterans were prime targets, always had been. We need to do something, I told the remaining members of the victims group. We need to make sure our stories matter, that they prevent future harm. We founded an organization, called it the Veterans Anti-Fraud Coalition. Our mission was simple: educate veterans about scams, provide resources for reporting fraud, and advocate for stronger laws protecting veterans from predatory practices. I was 91 years old when we launched. Most people that age are relaxing, enjoying retirement, spending time with grandchildren. I was testifying before Congress. Members of the committee, I said, sitting at the witness table in Washington, D.C., my name is Claudia Jefferson. I'm a United States Army veteran, and I'm here to tell you that our veterans are under attack. I told them my story, condensed version, 36 years in 15 minutes. This wasn't an isolated incident. I said, this was systematic exploitation of people who serve their country. And it continues today. Right now, there are veterans being scammed out of their benefits, their savings, their dignity. We need stronger laws, better enforcement, and most importantly, we need to make it clear that anyone who targets veterans will face serious consequences. The committee listened, asked questions, promised to look into legislation. Whether they followed through, I'd make sure they did, because that was my new mission, turning my pain into purpose, my experience into education. The Veterans Anti-Fraud Coalition grew. We got funding from legitimate veterans organizations. We created educational materials. We trained veterans to recognize scams. We saved people from becoming victims. In 2022, a case emerged in Texas, a fake charity claiming to help veteran suicide prevention, raising millions, all of it going to the founder. Our organization was the first to sound the alarm. We contacted authorities, provided documentation, helped build the case. The founder was arrested within 6 months, convicted within a year, because we knew what to look for, because we'd been through it. That's when I realized this was the legacy, not just getting John Donald Cody convicted, but using that experience to protect others. My grandchildren asked me about it once. Grandma, why did you spend so much of your life chasing that man? Why did it matter so much? Because of what he represented. I said, he represented people who think veterans are disposable, who think because we served, we're naive, who think they can exploit our patriotism for profit. And I needed to prove them wrong. I needed to show that we matter, that our service matters, that our dignity matters. Did you prove it? I'm still proving it. I said, 2024. I'm 96 years old. Most of my contemporaries are gone. Bernie, James, most of the veterans I served with, most of the people who were scammed alongside me. But I'm still here, still fighting. The Veterans Anti-Fraud Coalition has helped identify and stop over 40 fraudulent organizations in the past 5 years. We've saved veterans millions of dollars. Maybe more importantly, we've saved them from the emotional devastation of being betrayed. Because that's what fraud does. It's not just about money. It's about trust. It's about believing someone cares, and then discovering they never did. Last month, I got a call from a young veteran. Her name was Keisha, 26 years old, served in Afghanistan. "Mrs. Jefferson, I need your help," she said. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" "There's a lawyer who contacted me. Says he specializes in helping veterans with PTSD claims. Wants $7,500 up front. Something feels off, but I don't know if I'm being paranoid." My heart stopped. $7,500. The same amount John Donald Cody had charged me 41 years earlier. "Keisha, what's the lawyer's name?" She told me. I looked him up immediately. Fake credentials. No bar admission on record. Office address that didn't exist. "Keisha, it's a scam. Do not give him any money." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. And I'm going to help you report him." We contacted the FBI, State Bar Association, Veterans Affairs Fraud Hotline. Within a week, the fake lawyer was under investigation. Within a month, he was arrested. Turns out he'd been running the same con across 3 states. Keisha called me crying. "Mrs. Jefferson, you saved me. If I'd given him that money, I don't know what I would have done. I'm barely making rent as it is." "You would have survived," I said. "We always do. But I'm glad you didn't have to find out. How did you know what to look for?" "Experience," I said. "Painful experience." That conversation made me think. How many Keishas were out there? How many young veterans who didn't know the warning signs? I started a YouTube channel. At 96 years old, my granddaughter helped me set it up. "Grandma, what are you going to talk about?" "Fraud prevention, scam awareness, how to protect yourself." The channel grew slowly, then faster. Veterans started sharing my videos, commenting, asking questions. I told my story in a series of videos. 20 parts. The whole saga. "This is part 1, I said to the camera. The setup. How a smooth-talking con man convinced me to trust him. And what I learned from that mistake. The comments poured in. "This happened to my grandfather. Thank you for warning us. Your story saved me from a similar scam." That's when I understood. My story wasn't just about John Donald Cody. It was about resilience, persistence, refusing to be silenced or dismissed. It was about proving that Black women veterans matter, that our experiences matter, that our voices matter. For too long, we've been invisible. To the VA, to society, to the very people who should have been protecting us. John Donald Cody had exploited that invisibility, but I'd used it differently. I'd become a witness, a documentarian, a warning system. And now, at 96, I was finally being heard. They called us easy marks, thought we'd be too proud to complain, too tired to fight back, too broken by the system to seek justice. They thought wrong. My name is Master Sergeant Claudia Jefferson, and I spent 41 years proving that the easiest mark you can target is the one that will never, ever stop hunting you. Today, John Donald Cody is dead, died in federal prison, died knowing he'd been caught, died without ever admitting what he'd done. But he died in chains, and that's justice. Maybe not perfect justice, maybe not complete justice, but justice nonetheless. I'm 96 years old now. I've outlived the man who tried to destroy me. I've outlived most of the people who told me to give up. I've outlived the idea that Black women veterans don't matter, don't count, don't deserve to be heard, because we do matter. Our service matters. Our sacrifice matters. Our dignity matters. And anyone who thinks otherwise is going to learn the same lesson John Donald Cody learned. We might be patient. We might be quiet. We might seem like easy targets. But we're soldiers. We complete our missions. And our mission is justice. The Veterans Anti-Fraud Coalition is still operating, still protecting veterans, still educating people about scams. We've helped thousands of veterans avoid fraud, saved millions of dollars. More importantly, we've saved people from the pain of betrayal. That's my legacy, not revenge, protection. But I'd be lying if I said the revenge didn't feel good. It did. It does. Knowing that I took 41 years of my life and used them to bring down a man who'd hurt thousands of people. Knowing that my stubbornness, my anger, my refusal to let it go actually mattered. People ask me if it was worth it. 41 years. Thousands of dollars spent on investigations. Relationships strained. Time consumed. Was it worth it? Every single second. Because John Donald Cody thought I was nobody. Just another Black woman veteran he could exploit and forget. Another easy mark. Another transaction in his criminal empire. But I made sure he remembered me. I made sure that when he closed his eyes in that prison cell, he saw my face, heard my voice, knew that I'd been the one to bring him down. That's power, real power, not the power to hurt people, but the power to hold them accountable, the power to transform pain into purpose, the power to make sure your voice is heard even when everyone tells you to be quiet. I've told this story hundreds of times now, in courtrooms, at congressional hearings, in videos, in speeches, and every time I tell it, someone else is saved from becoming a victim. That's what matters. That's why I kept fighting for 41 years. Not just for me, for all of us, for every veteran who's been told they don't matter, for every Black woman who's been underestimated, for every person who's been called an easy mark and decided to prove them wrong. We're not easy. We're relentless. We're justice. We're the consequences you didn't think you'd face. And we have very, very long memories. If this story moved you, if it inspired you, if it made you angry or gave you hope, then I need you to do 3 things. First, subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell, because there are more stories like this, more lessons, more warnings, and you need to hear them. Second, share this video with every veteran you know, every person who's ever been scammed or taken advantage of, because knowledge is protection, and this story can save someone from becoming a victim. And third, if you've ever been defrauded, if you've ever been stolen from, if you've ever been called an easy mark, don't give up. Document everything. Report it. Fight back. Because justice doesn't have an expiration date. It took me 41 years, but I got there. And you will too. This is Master Sergeant Claudia Jefferson, signing off. Stay vigilant. Stay strong. And remember, we're not easy marks. We're survivors. And we always complete our missions. Always.